she said, "I'm not your servant." When I asked her to help tidy up just once after keeping our home spotless for 3 years, I replied, "Neither am I." She returned later to find a housekeeper polishing my new partner's shoes. There's a certain kind of order and discipline that gets drilled into you in the military. It's not just about making your bed or keeping your boots shiny. It's a way of thinking. It's knowing that small, steady efforts prevent major problems later. It's about respecting your surroundings, your tools, and yourself. For the 8 years I served, that discipline kept me and my team safe. For the last 3 years, it's just been keeping my home clean, a job I apparently did entirely alone. I live in a 2-bedroom house I bought with my savings a year before I met my now ex-girlfriend, Lila. It's my safe haven, a place of order in a chaotic world. My work as a project manager for a large construction firm is demanding, but I've always made time to maintain my home. Every Saturday morning, I'd clean top to bottom, floors, bathrooms, kitchen, everything. During the week, I was the one who washed the dishes after dinner, took out the trash, and made sure the laundry got done. I did it because I took pride in my home. I did it because I believed I was building a life with a partner. Lila didn't share that mindset. She treated our home like a self-cleaning hotel. Clothes were left wherever they were taken off. Dishes stayed in the sink for days. Her version of helping was pushing the mess on her side of the bedroom into a slightly neater pile. For 3 years, I tolerated it. I'd mention it, and she'd just laugh. "Oh, Sam, you're so much better at it than me," she'd say, as if her lack of effort was a compliment. I told myself it was a small trade-off for the good moments. Now I realize I wasn't paying a price. I was just paying for everything. The breaking point didn't happen on an ordinary day. It came after one of the most exhausting weeks of my career. We had a huge project deadline, and I'd been working 14-hour days, running on stale coffee and adrenaline. I came home that Friday night feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My body ached all over. All I wanted was a hot shower and a peaceful night. The house was a wreck. Lila had apparently hosted friends the night before. Empty wine glasses and plates cluttered the coffee table, throw pillows were scattered across the floor, and the kitchen looked like a disaster zone. Normally I would have sighed and started cleaning. But that night, I just didn't have it in me. Lila was in the bedroom, getting ready to go out again. She was doing her makeup, humming along to some song on the radio. I stood in the doorway, drained. "Hey Lila," I said, my voice rough with exhaustion. "I'm really wiped out. Could you please help me out a little tonight? Just load the dishwasher and wipe down the counters. It would mean a lot." She didn't even turn around. She just glanced at me in her vanity mirror. She gave a short, sharp scoff. "Seriously, Sam, I'm going out. I've got plans. I don't have time to clean your kitchen." "My kitchen?" I said, my tone sharpening. "This mess is from you and your friends." That's when she finally turned, her face full of pure irritation. "Look, I told you, I'm not some 1950s housewife. I'm not your servant. I'm not your servant." 3 years of me quietly cleaning up after her. 3 years of me keeping the home she treated like a crash pad. 3 years of me doing the work of 2 people. And that was her answer. The line wasn't just crossed, it was etched deep. The exhaustion I felt was replaced by sudden clarity. My military training took over. When faced with an impossible situation, you don't argue, you assess, adapt, and act. I looked at her. At her perfect makeup and expensive dress, the one I knew I'd paid for. I looked at the wrecked kitchen behind me. Then I looked back at her. "Neither am I," I said. Then I walked into the living room and sat down right in the middle of the mess. She stared for a moment, waiting for a fight. When she didn't get one, she rolled her eyes, grabbed her purse, and left, slamming the door. The moment I heard her car leave, I got to work. I didn't touch the mess. That mess was a monument to her lack of respect, and I was leaving it there. Instead, I opened my laptop. I spent an hour looking up professional cleaning services in my area. I found a top-rated, fully insured company and booked their most thorough 4-hour deep clean for exactly 1 week later. Then I went to the garage. On a high shelf were sturdy moving boxes from before I met her. I brought them inside and started packing. Not my belongings, hers. I began in the living room, gathering her magazines, trinkets, and the collection of scented candles she never lit. When she came home at 2 in the morning, smelling of wine and perfume, she was surprised to see me awake. She was even more surprised to see a stack of taped boxes in the corner. "What's all that?" she asked, sounding unsure. "You said you're not my servant," I replied calmly, looking up from my laptop. "And I said I'm not yours. We're clearly not compatible as housemates. This partnership, at its core, doesn't work. So I've made a decision. It's time for you to move out." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing. She thought it was some kind of overreaction to a petty argument. "You're kicking me out? Over one comment? Because I didn't want to do the dishes?" "No," I said, closing my laptop and giving her my full attention. "I'm ending this because you've made it clear you see any contribution to this home as the work of a servant. For 3 years, I had been that unpaid helper, and my service was now officially over. You have 1 week, 7 days, to pack your belongings and leave my home." She stood there, completely stunned. For 3 years, I had been running a 5-star hotel for a permanent guest who never once left a tip. I had just handed her the bill, and the hotel was shutting down. Update 1. The week that followed was a slow, painful lesson for Lila on the difference between a partner and a provider. She spent the first 2 days in stubborn denial. She refused to pack. She acted as if nothing had changed, making casual small talk, asking what I wanted for dinner. I responded with polite, one-word replies and made myself a sandwich. She clearly believed this was just a bluff, a dramatic flare-up, and that I would calm down and everything would return to normal. I did not calm down. I stayed unshaken. I slept in the spare room. I went to work, came home, and if she was around, I'd head to my workshop in the garage and focus on my projects. I didn't argue. I didn't react. Each evening, I gave her a simple, steady reminder. You have 5 days left to arrange moving your things. You have 4 days left. The quiet, constant pressure was far more effective than shouting ever would have been. By day 3, the denial cracked and anger took its place. She accused me of being controlling, of punishing her over a single offhand remark. It wasn't the remark, Lila, I told her evenly. It was the truth inside it. It was the complete lack of respect for me and for this home. While she cycled through her moods, I was methodically untangling our shared life. I called my credit card company and canceled her supplementary card. The customer service agent, a very helpful woman, asked if I wanted a list of recent charges. I said yes. It turned out Lila had spent over $2,000 in the last month on clothing, salon visits, and pricey lunches with friends, all while I was working overtime to support our life. The discovery wasn't shocking, but it was confirmation that I was making the right call. I changed passwords on all the streaming accounts we shared. I removed her from my car insurance policy for the vehicle she drove, which was in my name. Step by step, I was removing her from my life. On the final day, day 7, I came home from work to find the house unchanged. Her belongings were still everywhere. She hadn't packed a single thing. She sat on the couch, watching TV with a smug, challenging look. She thought I was bluffing. She was convinced I wouldn't follow through. I stood there for a moment, then nodded. "All right," I said. "I gave you a week." I took out my phone and made a call. "Hi, is this Citywide Movers?" "Yes, this is Sam. We spoke earlier this week. I'm calling to confirm tonight's pickup." Lila's head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "Who is that? Who are you calling?" "The movers I booked 5 days ago," I said. I had hoped you'd do this yourself, with some dignity. You chose not to. So, I'll do it for you. An hour later, a large moving truck pulled into the driveway. 2 movers came to the door. I'd already made a detailed list for them. Every item of women's clothing, every pair of shoes, all the cosmetics in the bathroom, and all decorative pieces I knew were hers. They were to pack it all. Lila broke down in a full-blown meltdown. She screamed. She cried. She called me heartless. She tried blocking the movers from entering her room. They were professionals, they waited quietly for me to resolve it. Lila, I said, my voice cutting through her noise. You have 2 options. You can step aside and let these men do the job I'm paying them for, or I can call the police to have you removed for trespassing. Since you haven't paid rent or contributed to this household in 3 years, you have no legal claim here. The choice is yours. She knew then I wasn't bluffing. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing as the movers quickly and efficiently boxed up her life. She made desperate calls to friends, then finally to her parents. From her side of the conversation, it was clear no one was rushing to help her. When the truck was loaded, the lead mover asked where to deliver it. Through tears, Lila gave them her parents' address. Her final humiliation was returning to her childhood home like a teenager sent home for breaking curfew. When the truck pulled away, I was alone in my house. It was messy from the quick move, but it already felt cleaner than it had in years. The next morning, the cleaning crew I had booked arrived. For 4 hours, 2 cleaners worked through the house from top to bottom. They scrubbed the floors, washed windows, sanitized the kitchen and bathrooms. When they were done, the house didn't just look spotless, it felt refreshed. It was a full reset. I wasn't only cleaning my home, I was clearing my life, making space for whatever came next. Final update. It's been 1 year since what my friends now call the Great Cleanout. The months after Lila left were some of the most peaceful and productive of my life. With my home life calm and stress-free, I found myself with more energy and sharper focus at work. 6 months ago, I was promoted to Senior Project Director, a role that came with a generous raise and far more reasonable hours. My home stayed spotless, thanks to a fantastic weekly cleaning service run by a woman named Rosa. For the first time, my house felt like a place to relax, not a constant chore. About 8 months back, I met someone. Her name is Elise. We met at a charity build for veterans. I was volunteering my project management skills, and she, an architect, was offering her design expertise. We connected instantly over blueprints and tools. She's intelligent, ambitious, independent, and has a laugh that lights up a whole room. She respects my work because she's a builder herself. We began dating, and right from the start, it was different. It was a true partnership. 4 months ago, Elise and I decided to take the next step. She sold her small condo and moved in with me. We didn't just combine lives, we created a new one together. She brought her style into the home, and I loved it. We cook side by side, we share the cleanup, and we talk about our days, our ambitions, and our plans for the future. It's simple. It's right. Now comes the moment that ties it all together. Last week, a letter for Lila arrived at my address by mistake. It was from a debt collection agency. I had no interest in seeing her, so I texted to let her know she could pick it up from my front porch at 10 a.m. on Saturday, a time I knew Elise and I would be out. Apparently, Lila decided to come early. At about 9 a.m. that Saturday, Elise and I were just getting ready to leave. Rosa, our housekeeper, was finishing her weekly routine. She always ends her visits by polishing our shoes for the week ahead and leaving them neatly by the door. It's a thoughtful, old-fashioned touch I truly appreciate. As I grabbed my keys, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Lila standing there. She looked different, thinner, worn out. The proud, defiant woman from a year ago had been replaced by someone beaten down by life. She started to say something, but her gaze drifted past me into the living room. I knew what caught her eye. She saw Rosa, kneeling on the floor, carefully applying polish to a pair of sleek, elegant leather boots. Elise's boots. Just then, Elise came down the stairs looking effortlessly stylish in her weekend clothes. "Oh, Rosa, you don't have to do that every week," she said warmly. "But thank you." Rosa smiled back. "My pleasure, Miss Elise. They're all done." Elise picked up her freshly polished boots and noticed Lila at the door. She gave me a questioning glance. "Lila, this is my partner, Elise," I said evenly. "Elise, this is Lila, she's here to pick up some mail." Lila didn't speak, she just stared. This was a consequence she never could have pictured. It wasn't about me moving on with someone else. It was the full image. Her replacement wasn't a servant, it was a capable, equal partner. The housekeeper wasn't there to serve a man, she was maintaining a home for two busy, successful people who valued and respected each other. The polished boots weren't a symbol of submission. They were a sign of a life so well organized, so steady, that such small luxuries were simply part of the week. A life she threw away because she was too proud and too lazy to load a dishwasher. Sensing the tension, Elise quietly took the letter from the table and handed it to Lila. "Here you go," she said politely. "Have a nice day." I said nothing. I simply gave Lila a neutral nod and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her walk away. She never looked back. I've since heard through mutual acquaintances that she still lives with her parents, working in a retail job she despises. She complains constantly about how unfair life is, blaming me for ruining everything. She still doesn't understand. I didn't ruin her life. She had a winning lottery ticket in her hand, and she tossed it aside because she didn't want to scratch it. Later that afternoon, Elise and I were in the garden, our hands covered in soil. She paused, looked at me, and said, "You know, for a guy who hires a cleaner, you're not afraid to get dirty." "Some work's a chore," I replied with a smile. "And some work's a joy." And for the first time in a long time, my life was full of joy, not chores. The greatest revenge wasn't asking her to leave, it was creating a better life, a life built on respect and partnership, in the peaceful, organized space she had abandoned.